Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Time is the most valuable thing you could ever share with someone, and I appreciate you sharing some of this with me. My name is Chris Lee, and I put this talk together because over the years, I've had the chance to work with organizations that have really touted their agile capabilities. And you'll hear things like, we've got this figured out. We have the basics. We want the advanced techniques. We want to move beyond all of just simple execution. We want to grow. We're a mature agile organization. What does that even mean? Does it mean going to all the meetings? Does it mean checking off the boxes in a certain conversation? Does it mean having a certain level of certification and education? Not exactly. What I want to do is take a look at what really, really matters. Those different decisions that we make, the behaviors that are on display, the interactions between people on a regular basis. That's what will really tell you if you're a mature Agile organization, because if they're consistent with the values and principles that you'll see in the Agile Manifesto, now we're talking about an Agile organization. The problem is that what you say doesn't always line up with what you do. The reason why I say that is take a look at this right here. You ever seen a dentist's office so nice? I mean, I wish I had that kind of windows when I get my teeth cleaned. But I want you to imagine an organization that says, our employees are our number one customer. Our employees are our top priority, and that's always at the top of the core values or what's important to this organization. I've seen this. I've been in these places. Challenge is that what they say is not always reflected in the activities, the behaviors, the interactions, and the decisions. Imagine you're trying to get your annual dental cleaning and you have to suddenly coordinate with a functional manager, a practice lead, an on-site manager, a customer liaison, operations, talent, and HR. You got to coordinate with a whole bunch of people just to get your teeth cleaned. Does that sound like it lines up? Not exactly. What if you had to go into your own pocket, use your own post-tax dollars to pay for the event, pay for going to get your teeth cleaned, where you don't have benefits? What about sending in a time off request that gets denied, or that we don't have that, it's not covered, so you have to use your own vacation accrual just to go get your annual dental cleaning? This is a case of an organization saying that one thing is important, but they directly contradict it with their behaviors, their decisions, and their interactions. And that's what breaks my heart. If you say something, are we actually living it? Are we embracing it? Are we embodying it? So I want to introduce a concept around these behaviors, decisions, and interactions to really keep an eye out. What's going on in our organization? What to look for? It's less about the meetings you go to and what certifications people have, and it's more about what's important to us as individuals, as teams, and realistically as an organization. So I want to introduce the concept of green flags and red flags. These green flags and red flags, these are behaviors, decisions, and interactions. When it comes to green flags, these are where these behaviors, these interactions are on display in an organization. And when you see them, you can tell that a particular value system is being embraced. This is how we live. This is what's important to us as an organization. And you could go to a meeting, you can read an email, you could see people collide and talk and interact, and you can see it. You can see, wow, this is what's important here. Consider that dental example I mentioned earlier. Is that green flag? Not exactly. That's more of what I like to call a red flag. When it comes to red flags, these are also behaviors, decisions, and interactions. However, they're in conflict or contradict the value system the organization says it embodies and embraces. Our employees are our number one customer. By the way, we're going to make it so difficult for you to get your dental cleaning. I want to make this really explicit. Green flags, these are great to see. These mean the value system is being embodied and it's healthy. Red flags, not so much. And the reason I want to use green flags and red flags to illustrate this is bringing it back to that organization that says we're a mature Agile organization. I'm going to be straight with you, folks. A lot of times this is a myth. The reason why is that there's this misconception that if delivery teams are trying to operate in some kind of way, we're doing that Agile, that's representative of the entire organization. But think about it, organization, you got to zoom out. Everything from executive leadership to the new hire that just started, that's the organization. You can have a lot of departments, verticals, different parts that make up that overall system. I mean, think about the moving parts, executive leadership, a sales department, a marketing arm, the folks around procurement, vendor management, accounting, finance, delivery management, talent, people, human resources, learning and development, project management office. That's all separate from actual delivery a lot of times, like the people doing the work. That's what an organization looks like. Now, these red flags, they don't just exist in delivery. They exist across the entire organization. So what I'd like to do is share some firsthand examples, things that we have experienced, things that we've observed and helped move people away from red flag, more to green flag behavior, specifically around these Agile values and principles. So to start, I'd like to focus on this value right here about choosing individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Common misconception when it comes to the values that you'll see on the Agile Manifesto is that, oh, we don't have process. We're just Agile. No. Everything you see there has value, but given a limited amount of time, given an opportunity to choose between one or the other, the choice would be to choose one thing over the other, left or right, A or B, 1 or 0. The choice of, we would think about individuals and interactions over processes and tools when given that choice. If we're embodying and embracing this value, you can see it on display. So I want to talk about some green flags around this value. If an organization really, really embraces this, the interactions between people, they're much more people-focused and human-centric. And you can see it just in how people interact and collide. Now, there's value in having processes and tools, but the underlying approach, the foundation, part of the operating system is, you don't want to know, let's think about the people. Humans first. Humans first whenever we're making a decision or when we're interacting with other folks. So some green flags I wanted to share is that when people are talking with one another or writing correspondence, people are referred to in a humane way. Think about names, personal considerations. The flip side of that is, have you ever people say, oh, we got something from the business? Heard that before? Heard that a lot. Imagine actually using people's names. It's a lot more human. That's what we're getting at. Thinking about people. Green flag, behaviors, decisions, interactions, how people are referred to, how they're referred to. It's a big one. This is why I don't like using the term resources. Now, when it comes to green flag number 2, this is where meeting culture is taken seriously. When I say seriously, I mean that people's time, when you're going to a meeting and coming together to do something, that time is treated as a very precious thing. Don't want to waste your time. We're bringing just the people together that we need, and we're going to accomplish something. We're going to do something. We're going to create something. We're going to ask you for something. It's a positive and productive use of people's time. On the flip side, imagine meetings where it's just you're back to back to back to back to back all day, and each of those meetings are just reruns of previous meetings. That's just a heartbreaker. When I hear people that say that the 10 o'clock meeting looked just like the 11 o'clock meeting, maybe meetings aren't taken so seriously. These are some green flags, though. People are referred to as people, and also the time around meetings is treated in a precious manner. This is green flag behavior. This is green flag like decision making. This is green flag interactions. I want to share a couple of red flags, though, related to individuals and interactions not being chosen, and instead the choice was for processes and tools. I'd like to use this group of people that I worked with as an example. You may have, or you may be a part of a project management office, PMO, and I've been part of these, and I have great memories and also some challenging ones. Imagine a situation here where that group of people is the hub for activities around different delivery programs. Hey, we're the hub of all this information. Well, this group of people, they required extremely detailed reports. I need status reports around the tasks that are being executed, maybe asking other people percentage levels of how long were you on project A and B and C. I need it in hours, I need it in decimals, I need it in percentages. And the focus here was on generating reports to just communicate internally and then maybe send it up the chain to then be messaged to other folks. A lot of reports. Need you to update things. The dashboard is all that matters. You imagine hearing that? We make decisions based on this dashboard. This is a clear example of where processes and tools was being chosen over those individuals and interactions. It wasn't so much worrying about the people. That word resource came up quite a bit, I remember, with this group. And it's kind of like, you look, if there's anything that we need is we need to raise the level of humanity in what we do. Always looking for the humanity in things, making people more human in each other's eyes. Good things can happen. That's where this value wasn't embodied at all. You could see the choice. Now, remember, in addition to the 4 values in the manifesto, you also see 12 principles. And this one just pops out to me of, here's a principle that was being violated here. Working software is the primary measure of progress. For this group, it was all about those reports, dashboards, lines, charts, sheets, wikis. We're busy. We've got a lot of work going on. And that was the justification for a really big invoice. Kind of a bummer. You're like, Chris, man, why are you bumming me out? Because you have to keep an eye out for some of these things. Sometimes it's an actual delivery team, or it's somebody who's tangential or even further away from it. This shows that this part of the organization might not embody the Agile mindset because of these red flags. Let me share another red flag that we had some experience with. And this is a quote you never want to see in your email, because it's almost always in an email. Sometimes it's in Slack, maybe a text. We're sorry, your request has been denied. You ever heard that before? This was they were the human resources department. Some people use talent, some people use people. I prefer those terms, but HR is what we normally see out in organizations. This group had a very complicated approval process that you had to go through. And this was around requesting use of a training budget, like if you wanted to go to a class or take some time off, go on vacation. And what it can look like, and it looked like here, was there were multiple forms to submit, some electronic, some paper. You had to coordinate with different departments, like, hey, I've got to talk to this person in this account and talk to the overall this, and talk to a practice lead. There were rollover budgets of both dollars and time, like comp time of, hey, do you have a bucket of comp time maybe you can pull from, because we have to make sure that this lines up with this. And then talking to external customers as well as people internal to the organization. This is another example of processes and tools being chosen over individuals and interactions. Hey, I'd really like to do this. Okay, you're going to need to go through this onerous process just to get that. It just feels bad telling the story, because having experienced it firsthand, you almost don't want to take vacation because of what you have to go through. Just take a couple of days off. And when you're away, all that work's going to pile up. The principle that pops out to me when I think about this behavior is that building projects around motivated individuals, there is very low motivation for me to do anything if that's what I have to go through. The environment, support that they need, and trust to get the job done. You're telling me that we don't want you to go on vacation. We're telling you we don't want you to go spend that training budget because here's this process that we valued. It's never good to hear that. I always find it funny. It's a request for time off versus like, hey, I'm actually not going to be here. The words we say matter. More importantly, those behaviors, decisions, and interactions around it say a lot about how much do we embody this value. This right here, this is a red flag. This is a red flag for me. Think about how far away we are from delivery. We're talking about more back office, support, that kind of stuff. If there's no Agile mindset there, and only just with those teams doing that Agile, maybe we don't really embrace this as an organization. This is why I like to zoom out more and think about this mythical organization, this mature Agile organization that everyone thinks that they are. Because when you consider the embodiment of these values, you got to zoom out. You got to look at different parts of the organization. You got to look at the whole castle, not just one room. Now, when it comes to this value, working software over comprehensive documentation, this is, for folks who are around agility for a while, the spirit of it is pretty well known. But if you're brand new to this, some people think, oh, Agile's just for software. I like to say working functionality over comprehensive documentation when I share this with my students and the folks I talk about in speeches and workshops, because agility has branched out into so many different industries. It has its roots in the software industry. But thinking about that, actually getting stuff done, delivering that stream of value over that comprehensive documentation, those are those choices. Those are those behaviors, those decisions, those interactions that are on display. So I want to share a couple green flags around this value. It's on display when the organization as a whole focuses more on, hey, these are the things that we're doing, the things that we're building, the value we're providing, as opposed to extraneous paperwork. And paperwork is not always actually on paper. Sometimes it's electronic. There's clearly a need whenever you're building something, product development, there's going to be the need for some type of documentation, some support stuff. Maybe there's a change management process around things. I get it. But the mindset here is to focus on what is it that we're trying to provide to someone? What are we trying to give to someone to impact their life in a positive way while creating the least amount of paper? I always like to say the minimum amount of purposeful paper. You're going to need some. Do we actually need it? Purposeful paper is the way to go. That's how this value is on display. So some green flags around this value is that when the focus is on, let's go for the biggest outcome that we can with the least amount of output, the least amount of waste. It doesn't matter to me if you got 150 user stories done. I'm more interested if you got the one done that got the biggest bang for buck. Smiles per gallon, we used to say. The biggest smile with the least amount of work. If that's the focus and that's where the energy is, it's not about the appearance of rigor. It's more about, hey, we're actually making an impact. Some green flags there. Another green flag to share would be around how we show people things. Hey, here's something that we've made. We made this for you. What do you think? It needs to be safe. It needs to be encouraged. Hey, go show somebody something that might have a rough spot in it, that might have a typo. If it's okay to show somebody, hey, here's something we're working on. We wanted you to mess with it. Tell us what you think. And if that is encouraged, and if it's a safe environment to do that, that's some more green flag. That's more green flag behavior right there. If we're going to have interactions around showing things, hey, check this out. Hey, there's a typo here. Not a big deal. I see where you're going. Oh, okay. These are some green flags. You can tell that working software is being chosen over comprehensive documentation. So on the other side, I want to go ahead and share a couple of red flags. One red flag is embodied in this quote right here. Hey, remember to go ahead and map those changes over. Heard this when I was working with a group of delivery managers. That's the term that they would use, and you'll see this in different titles. But they were focused on current and potential work that was happening on a program, and they had some very, very heavy demands. And I use that word demand on purpose because people on that program had to maintain multiple copies of what they were working on, as well as what they might be working on. So you've got to update this list, but you also have to update this list. Those two lists have to look the same. Additionally, this list, the client doesn't like it in that format, so we have to transpose it over into this taxonomy they're more comfortable with. In addition, this has to then be translated into this tool because it's going to be uploaded where. Have you ever had to do multiple backlogs at the same time? Multiple lists? Think about that. This has to line up with this, which has to line up with this, which has to line up with this. That type of activity and everything around it shows that comprehensive documentation is being chosen over actually working functionality, working software. Trying to get something in front of people. Imagine all of the keystrokes, all of the energy that goes into list 1, 2, 3, and 4 when you could have spent it on actually doing something. That's what I'm getting at. These might be people who are tangential to delivery. They might not actually have their hands dirty as well, but they're a part of the organization as well. Think about the mindset of these folks. Do this in times 4. What? Times 5. Saw it 4. 5 happened once. It's heartbreaking to share this stuff. Now, those principles I referenced earlier, here's the one that really pops out to me when I reflect on this example, is that the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams, as opposed to, hey, we've learned this has to base this, and you have to format it to this, and then this. Nothing's emerging here. We're just copying and pasting and doing a little bit of sanding. This right here, this is a big red flag. Big red flag for me, having those multiple lists. That's a red flag that maybe some of you have experienced. A lot of these approaches have meant to replace things as opposed to add things on. And if you've added 3 or 4 tools on top of things, boy, it can get silly. But what about this? Have you ever heard a quote like this? Hey, make sure those hours you're putting in, make sure that when you enter them, they all match up across time cards. I want you to imagine an accounting department. And one of the things they have to focus their energy on is all the effort that employees are spending and they're working, how are they compensated? So they're worrying about, sending out invoices, but also that internal transfer of, a budget from department 1 to department 2. Have you ever had to ask for a charge code? I've been in organizations where someone would send a meeting request, be like, do I have a charge code for that? And you could decline a meeting. And there was some good to that because it's don't waste my time. But again, think of all the churn that could happen around this. Reason why I tell this is that this particular group had this time entry set of processes and procedures, as well as systems to support it, where people had to put their time in across different, both internal and external systems. Imagine maintaining 2 internal time cards where here's the actual work time that you've put, and we're going to keep that internal to the project. But we also have a program level one where we're cutting it a slightly different way, where anything over a particular agreed upon burn rate is then marked as comp time that can be used for vacation later. But then with what we are sending to the client, we actually have another one where it's just 88888, where it's, this is because of what the agreed upon price, even though it's a time and materials contract, it's kind of been priced like a firm fixed price. So we don't want to surprise the customer. We don't want to surprise the customer with a couple of extra hours. Imagine having to do 3, 4 time cards. And at the end of every day, you're spending an hour making sure it all reconciles. Because if you waited till the end of the week, you're doing it for half the day. So the good practice was, oh, let's take an hour every day to make sure all of our time is in order. True story. This is an example of comprehensive documentation being chosen over working software. Chris, why is it documentation? You're getting this information down and you could be spending that time delivering value. But instead, someone back home, someone back in corporate saying, we have to do this to get paid. Only one of them was really tied to the invoicing. The rest was just noise. When I think about the principle that's being violated here, I think about the one around simplicity. And I get a lot of questions from students. They're like, Chris, what does this mean? Maximizing the amount of work not done? Think of it like, okay, you ever seen those emails that are really, really long? Do you ever read the whole thing? I don't either. But why write an email of 1,500 words when 15 would do? When 15 would do. I mean, that's the spirit of it, being simple. Can I just put my time in once? And that's what it is versus multiple copies. This is more of a red flag with respect to this value. Zooming back out, consider what I'm talking about. Different parts of the organization that are tangential or even further away from delivery teams. You have to zoom out and consider the entire castle. It's not just the team out on the front that's doing the work. Oh, well, they talk every day, or, oh, every 2 weeks they do this. That means we're agile. No. This myth of this mature organization, it's been eating at me for years. And that's why I'm so excited to put this out there for you to think about. Hopefully some of this is resonating with you. These values, these principles, this is what it means. So I want to continue the conversation talking about this value right here, customer collaboration over contract negotiation. What you'll see on the manifesto is that everything here has value. There are no contracts in Agile. No, there's plenty of contracts. There's plenty of conversations around that and saying, hey, here's an agreement between people. But if given the choice, we would want to work with our customers as opposed to potentially against them. So green flags around this value, they're really on display when you can see the interactions between customers. And I mean internal and external customers. Those interactions where you might need something from another department, or maybe a partner, someone you're on a contract with, or that person that actually pays the organization, those interactions are in a more collaborative manner, in a friendly manner. And how that feels, the nature of that, shouldn't just extend to the invoices. Like I mentioned, it should be to those other departments you've got to interact with. I was lucky enough to experience this, and people, whenever it felt a little bit out, it was like, oh, hang on a second. No, same team. We're on the same team. Same team. We used to say that. Hey, same team. Same team. It's like, all right, you're right. Same team. Having that anchor to go back to really showed that green flags were present here. These are a few green flags I wanted to share with you that I've been lucky enough to experience. One is around feedback, where there's a positive culture around asking for feedback, for providing feedback to others, how we interpret it, how we categorize it, and also how to respond to it. Feedback has to be okay. And when you see an organization that really embraces it and asks the questions and it goes both ways, that's an example of some green flag behaviors, decisions, and interactions. And you consider that if it's a positive vibe around it, that's some green flag right there. But as far as another green flag, this one, it's more on display than you realize. When you think about how many people you collide with, when I say collide, like you interact with, you bump into, you chat with, interactions and communications between people, they're more informal. Think about like how many ways that you can talk to somebody through text, through Slack, through some kind of tool, video, at lunch, in a meeting room. Those communications are informal. Hey, how's it going? Personable. And they're just easy communication, easy to talk to people, easy to interact with people. It's light. That's some green flag right there. When I see that in those behaviors, those interactions, those decisions, that's very indicative that this value is being embraced and embodied because of this green flag. But there are some red flags here to consider, where the choice is not, hey, let's collaborate with our customers. Instead, we're going to focus on hard, serious contract negotiation. Consider this quote right here. We've already promised it, so you have to build it. Remember hearing stuff like this, and sometimes it accompanied a little bit more colorful language from a sales team. Imagine a sales team, and their job is to generate revenue for the organization. We're the lifeblood of the organization. That normally led and followed by, we've already made some promises. You just have to deliver. A lot of times these folks would be selling anything from licenses products, stuff on the shelf, services, straight up hours. Yeah, and that's real. But like they have to interact with the rest of the organization. There's operations to consider. There might be marketing to think about getting messaging out, but also those business units required to actually deliver it in the execution. And then those interactions with delivery as well as others, suddenly they start to take an adversarial turn. Like, hey, we made some promises, and then you start to see what I like to call us versus them in the environment. You ever mentioned that or heard that before or seen people even say that term? It's us versus them. When I see these type of quotes, these kind of behaviors, these kind of decisions and interactions, this shows that contract negotiation is valued more than actually collaborating with customers, because you got to work together. It's not just the people with the invoice, it's folks inside the organization as well. And it breaks my heart when things can actually become adversarial with people who are on the same team. So the principle that actually jumps out to me when I see these type of quotes and these kind of behaviors, these kind of decisions, these kinds of interactions, is this one around changing requirements. We welcome it even late in development, and actually leveraging what our customer's trying to do, embracing that and trying to say, how can we leverage that? That's a lot different than, well, we've already promised it, you can't change it. Sorry. Man, that just doesn't feel good. This is a red flag. Sometimes sales and delivery is very, very tight. Other times it's we bring in the work and then we're out of there. Is this organization really agile at its core? If it's just delivery teams, and even then that might not even be that strong. This is why I say it's a myth. This is a big red flag. You hear stuff like that, it's a red flag. Here's another red flag I'd like to share with you. One that I've unfortunately had to experience in a number of environments. A procurement group or process a lot of times involves multiple departments. It could involve staffing and operations. It could involve sales. It could involve delivery. Almost always involves delivery. Could involve legal. A lot of stuff. And a customer request might come in and that could impact contracts in some way. It might impact, it might not. And imagine that small request that comes in initiates some kind of high stakes negotiation, some kind of meeting where everyone goes ahead and puts on their Sunday's best. I remember putting on the dark navy, making sure ready to go. And it starts to look more like a tense negotiation rather than a collaboration between partners. You got representatives from those different departments sitting opposite table, from the customer, where everyone goes ahead and gets out the red pen. Oh, we're going to red pen this. We're going to get legals in the room. We're going to adjourn for a little bit and have legal. We're going to get back to you. Here are some of the things that we have a problem with. And this word right here, we interpret change a little different than yours. Can you imagine that? Firsthand experience, literally changing a word in a label triggered meetings like this on a regular basis. Imagine how much time that took, how much stress that introduced, how much money that cost everybody. This is where contract negotiation was clearly chosen over customer collaboration. And to be fair, it was not just always the organization. It was the client that folks were dealing with. They were a little bit difficult to deal with as well. I'm just going to put it out there. But we're there as an organization. If you're trying to move the needle on this and shift hearts and minds, let's make it a little bit more same side of the table than opposite side of the table. The principle that would be violated in this kind of scenario is that think about our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through delivering valuable functionality. We're trying to make you happy. We're trying to give you stuff. We don't want to enter into a fight about things. Hey, check this out. We made this for you. What do you think? That's the spirit. This principle would be way out hearing stuff like this. Oh, well, I'm going to bring in legal. Well, we're going to bring in legal too. We'll bring in sales also. Well, we're going to bring in sales as well. Well, your account lead, well, this, that, the other. I'm going to go ahead and call leadership. Go up the chain. Suddenly you got 50 people in the room, 25 on 25. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. Here's another one that we've had experience with, rather, with these values. Sorry, I'm literally reliving these meetings as I'm sharing these stories and thinking about working with our customers, trying to delight them. We're talking about sales and procurement, legal. It's like they're not even delivery. We're zooming out in the organization. Imagine executive versus executive. That's kind of what I was going to get to. That's not really working together and not being on the same team. This is why this idea of that mature agile organization, people who wave that flag and they tout it, we want the advanced techniques. We can't even embrace and embody these values as an organization. Everyone has the same lanyard, and what's important to us is not consistent. The last value that I want to talk about, responding to change over following a plan. This is one that it shows up quite a bit. It shows up quite a bit because I love to plan. Any of you who I've had the pleasure of interacting with in the world, you probably know that I really like planning, but I want to make sure that I've never put myself in a bad position. I never want to put the team in a spot where we can't make an adjustment. And this value is all about, if we need to make that adjustment, we would consider doing that over just blindly following whatever plan we spent on. The green flag behaviors around this, the green flag decisions, green flag interactions, I want to talk about that a little bit, because when I think of the places I've been in where this value was really embraced, it was awesome to see where the attitude around, hey, we're going to plan and we're going to execute. There's going to be some kind of planning. How we approach that, that's the heart of this value, because there's going to be collisions, there's going to be interactions, there's going to be experiments, there's going to be feedback. All of that is going to influence some adjustments, the necessary adjustments that we have to make to get the system, how we work together and the work itself. How do we get it closer to that ideal state? And when an organization has to respond to either changes in the market, new pieces on the board, new opportunities, changes within the customer, we want to make sure to adjust to that, responding to that change. So some green flags around responding to change would be this. First is that it has to be okay, welcomed, to openly ask and reflect on this question right here. Hey, what have we learned? What should we adjust because of it? What did we learn? And notice I'm not putting in time on that. Hey, what did we learn last year? Versus, hey, here's something I learned yesterday. I just had lunch and I heard something is going on. What do we have to adjust there? That idea of we've learned something, how can we incorporate those findings into what we do? That's some green flag right there. That's a big green flag. If it's okay to reflect on that, that's a good sign. Another green flag that I've been very, very grateful that I've experienced is that the period of time, the gap between when we plan and when we execute has shrunk, has minimized. The attitude was, let's start sooner. Starting sooner was what it was all about. If we're coming up with a plan, we're not planning for something we're going to do 18 months from now. No, we're going to plan for what we're doing tomorrow or the next couple of days. From planning to execution, starting sooner, that is a really great green flag to look for. If you see the gap between planning and execution is minimized, ooh, green flag. That's some green flag stuff right there. Love to see that, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you wouldn't make the choice as an organization to respond to change. Instead, you'd want to follow the plan. So some red flags around this value goes to this quote right here. We need to meet our annual OKR metrics. A couple of you just went, I think about this quote specifically around some leadership and executive teams we've worked with, and they were trying to figure out what success looked like to encourage everyone to focus on, here's where we're going. The problem is that they were looking way too far out. Long-range radar and that long-term measurement of success, if we don't know if we're successful until we get way down there, it's kind of tough to make adjustments. Longer planning cycles, a finish line that's way out in the future, is really difficult to really think about things and go, hey, are we making the adjustments needed to stay on the path? How far can you get off if you run really hard for a month, 2 months, a whole quarter? 5 degrees off, you're in a whole nother direction. This is an example of where following a plan is chosen over responding to change. We've got a plan. We have a success mark way out there. And I had one of my colleagues and I talked about it is like, well, wouldn't have a longer range view of things help with adjustments? Well, what if the plan was created in conjunction with those OKRs? That's what I'm getting at. They would create a yearly plan, an annual plan, and people hated it because they were literally figuring out this person will work on this task on this day in this week in Q2 of next year. How ridiculous does that sound? Even saying it out loud, it's like, wait, what? The principle that is violated here is that in regular intervals, we'd reflect on how can we be more effective? How can we adjust what we're doing? If there are no adjustments, because we've already done our annual planning, and that's the plan we're going to revisit every single day, and none of it will change ever because we've sent it off and it's tied to these metrics. And ooh, it's really, really tough spot to be in. Really tough spot. If the finish line is way out there and you can't make any adjustments because that's when we'll know if we're successful or not, that's some red flag. That's red flag for me. Red flag. When I think about these red flags and these quotes, this one really hits me in the heart. We've already announced the new campaign. The roadmap was in the deck. We've already shared it with folks. I think of a marketing department I used to work with, and they might have been asked to do things. And one of the things they actually were asked to do, get the word out about what's happening, the products that we're working on, the new features, the stability here. Let's generate some buzz, some excitement about what's happening. Problem here is that this group would create this arbitrary release date for new features. Maybe it lined up with some kind of internal conference. You ever had the internal conference that we want to have it on? Or maybe it's an external event. You're sponsoring something in this city. And you know what? We have to make sure that those features are there by the time we get there. Suddenly it's a sense of urgency that's almost manufactured. And it forces teams to then make trade-offs about how they spend their time as well as the quality of their work. We've already communicated this. It's in the roadmap. So whatever you need to do to get it done, it needs to be in there by March 13th before we hit the show floor. Talk about following a plan as opposed to responding to change. There's not even any kind of feedback loop. We've already announced it. It's not even like promises were made. We've already announced it. So you're going to have that available. This is an example from a principle standpoint of where business people and developers maybe not working together, because before that slick graphic and date came up, imagine, hey, we're thinking about, do you think we can have that out or this feature in this game done? It's like, absolutely not. We're not even close to that. Could we instead maybe show off this or this or this? Or, hey, what if we showed off this character instead of this character? A little bit more in a collaborative manner. Hey, people are really excited about this because of this movie is tied to this. That's the spirit of this principle, and it's clearly being violated in an instance like this. It really shows that maybe we aren't agile at our core, that the behaviors, the decisions, the interactions, they're not there. When we zoom out, it's not just delivery teams, it's all of the supporting parts of the organization. And just in sharing these, breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. And I wanted to share these flags with you. And I wanted to, I wanted to just give you a chance to catch your breath. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is that I hear often, Chris, I want to take the next step. We've got the basics down. Our teams execute so well. We're already a mature agile organization. This is why I feel it's a myth. A lot of times people are just looking at a small group of people, or they think because they have a tool installed or these conversations that they're doing that agile. And these red flags are not just for delivery. You'll hear, you might have seen some of my content talking about anti-patterns, choices people make that are they think they're helping and they're not really. When it comes to values and principles, think about how damaging it can be to say one thing and the behaviors, decisions, and interactions directly contradict what you say is important. You have to know what these red flags are and just to keep an eye out for it. There are so many more I could share, but I wanted to share ones that were coming up for me and that hit me in my heart when I experienced them. Where it's, wow, you say one thing, really you mean another. We have to work as leaders in an organization, identifying the red flags is the first step, thinking about what they are, and then saying, how can we maybe shift it? What tweaks can we make to turn it into more of a green flag? The reason I like to talk about behaviors, decisions, and interactions, these are things that you can see on a regular basis. Like if you just dropped by and hung out in an organization or observed a delivery team or got to sit in on a sales meeting, it's like, are we seeing those behaviors, those decisions, those interactions, and are they green flags? So what I'd like to do is just to share a couple of broad ideas that you want to keep an eye out for, and some guidance of, if you spend some time here, maybe you can turn that red flag into a green flag. When it comes to individuals and interactions, making that choice, as far as behaviors, when it comes to the approach towards process, watch out for organizations that like to add steps or add processes. Think about it. When has adding a step made something go a little bit faster? When has adding a step increased the humanity? Sometimes there might be some edge cases, but that's what I like to look for. Have you actually thought about, hey, maybe what can we take out? What's something we can remove? That additive approach. Hey, let's do this. Let's add another meeting to the carrot. Let's put another meeting on the calendar. You like hearing that? That's how you can maybe think about moving a red flag to a green flag. As far as the decisions, I've seen choices made, and we talked about a bunch of them. When you see choices made on a checklist, oh, that class we took says we have to follow it in the steps, or oh, it has to be this, and you're kind of going back to that checklist. If the decisions are all based on a checklist, and wait a minute, let's talk about this. Does this make sense for us? Do we have to follow this canned agenda for? If the choices and decisions are made on a checklist, that's a red flag. Maybe zoom out, put the checklist face down, have a conversation in the spirit of what you're trying to do, but considering the people in the room. Now, along with those people, from an interaction standpoint, think about the conversations you have, either in email, in meetings, in person. And if a tool comes up a lot, that's indicative of red flags for me. If you hear a particular tool, the J word, how many times have you been in a meeting and that comes up a lot? If you don't know what I'm getting at, watch some of my other things, you'll laugh. But thinking about, oh, you're always talking about, oh, we got to put it in this. Oh, we got to put it in this. Make sure to update this. Hey, install this. Just take a moment. Think about how many meetings you've been in when you've heard a tool or a piece of software, something like that. Yeah. If tools dominate the conversation, this is indicative of more red flag for me. From an interaction standpoint, are the interactions more talking about person to person rather than interacting with a tool? You want to try to shift from a red flag to more green flags. Less red flags, more green flags around those behaviors, those decisions, and those interactions. That's just for this value. But I want to talk about the second value. Working software, working functionality. A thing to keep an eye out for behaviors is how much energy goes into tracking and reporting the activities around anything, delivery, what you're working on, internal projects. If there's a need to track where work is, why is energy being put into a tracking system as opposed to shrinking that system a bit or focusing on the flow of work through that system? If you're worried about reporting out, why is that energy not spent in getting stuff out the door? Some type of approval process that's this to this to this to this to this. Why do you need these? If there's a lot of energy around tracking and reporting, that's more indicative of red flags for us. When you think about, why are we tracking this? Why aren't we just trying to get this out the door? If your system flows fast enough, there might not be a need to track it. Think about that. Think about that. Those are some red flags to think about from behaviors. As far as decisions, imagine when, hey, how are we going to spend our time? How are we going to interact? How am I going to take this week? What are we going to focus in on? If there's always a preference and a choice for creating paper, that shows that some of the decision making would always choose that comprehensive documentation. Oh, well, we need to install this meeting, or we need to do this thing, or today when we get together, we're going to focus on updating the. If there's a preference to create paper, that might drive more decisions than you realize. Purposeful paper is fine. Extraneous paper is not. The decisions you make, left or right, how we spend our time, do we need this meeting? Think about the decisions that are made when you actually have a left or a right. And I know some of you are saying, I didn't have a choice, I was made to go. Have a conversation about that. That already, let's even zoom it out, that's all of it. But that preference, that might be there. Another thing to consider as far as working software, where meetings are focusing on capture, like, hey, we want to write down what everyone's doing, or let's capture what's happening in the meeting to then capture these minutes and then upload it to this. And you may have seen my talk on the AI note taker. You might want to check that one out if you've seen that one floating around. It's good stuff. But if meetings are focused on capturing what's going on and then putting it somewhere, it's more red flag. Maybe less on capture and actually more on desired outcomes and moving the needle forward. That's how to get it to a green flag. More green flags are good. Less red flags, also good. More red flags, bad. As far as collaborating with our customers, here's some of those flags I want you to keep an eye out for. Red flags around interacting with customers, internal and external, if there's an assumption that other people act in bad faith. We are very fortunate to have a very deep contracts and legal background where I work. And looking at things, you can almost see in the writing, are you assuming that someone is going to try to harm you or steal from you or take advantage of you? And by I say you, I mean the global you, your organization. If there's the assumption that others act in bad faith, I don't want to interact with that department because they're all jerks. If you're starting from that, it's not a good place. I tell folks, if you are going into a meeting like expecting a fight, I'm going to guarantee that you're going to find one because you're probably going to start it. Trying to not assume others are acting in bad faith, but assume positive intent. Move it to a green flag. As far as the decisions we make, I see choices sometimes that are made. We have to make sure not to violate our terms. If you're always going back to to SOPs and T's and C's and all alphabet soup. I don't want to send this email because it might violate this part of procurement or this statement of work. Even in sending an email, why is that? Is there some unwritten contract? Or even if it's written, why is that even there if it's just we're inside the same organization? I'm just making a quick request for a little help or a little bit of IT support, or, hey, I was looking for this marketing deck. If you're trying to not violate terms and there's a unease around that, that needs to be easy. Less about, am I breaking the contract? Try to actually have that collaborative manner. Hey, could you help me out? Hey, can you help me out? A quick conversation. We grab some coffee. Goes a long way. Likewise with the interactions. This is something that you can see, and you can look at this right away. Once you're done watching this, take a look at your inbox. Look at how email is written. If the correspondence between people in chat, in phone, and email is needlessly formal, that's indicative that maybe we shy a little towards contracts. You ever seen those how you sign off? VR? No disrespect if that's what you use, but it's like, think about the needless formality in some of the email that we see, in some of the email that we send. Why? Do you have to CYA that much? Think about that. Let's shift away from the red flag. Make it a little bit easier, a little bit more informal, a little bit lighter. Contracts are fine. Everything is not a high stakes negotiation. And as far as responding to change, here's some flags to keep an eye out for. From a behavioral standpoint, imagine someone learns something. Hey, I talked to somebody. Hey, there's a market opportunity here. Hey, I learned this doesn't work. Have you ever had that shut down? New findings are regularly dismissed. This is a red flag to look out for. If someone brings something up and says, hey, I learned something, and it's no. It's almost like that, stick to the plan. If new ideas can come in, new opportunities, you want to embrace those. Let's talk about those, what experiments we want to run, prove some stuff out. Not with a lot of paper, but having a healthy attitude around this. That's how you move it to a green flag. As far as the decisions we make, this is something to watch out for. I've been on contracts where we were almost painted into a corner. What does that mean? An architectural decision was made 2 years ago, and this is what we're stuck with. A lot of times we need to stick to the plan. If you find yourself where you are hindered with a dependency because of a decision that was made earlier, somewhere in the past, and you can't change it, you want to make it okay. The next decision we make, thinking about how are we not going to paint ourselves in a corner where we're going to limit our options. Try not to hem yourself in with any decision. Leave yourself an out sometimes. It's good. Left or right is important, but think about how many times you've been handcuffed by that. Those are red flags. Try to shift it to green flags. Consider, will this hinder us in the future? Will it not let us respond to market conditions? Now, with the interactions that go with all this, think about the conversations around planning. Because remember, what's the value? Responding to change over following a plan. If there's a negative air anytime there's planning, like either coming up with the plan or executing it, that's red flag. You ever had that fight of, I need plan versus actual for 2 weeks ago. In Q1, I need a roll up of all of your plan versus actual because we're trying to reconcile. If there's a lot of coming up with a plan and you need to commit to this in the sprint, you're making promises to me, and now I'm going to go ahead and communicate that to the customer. There's a lot of problems with that statement right there. If that feels normal, please give me a call. I'd love to help. But when people are coming together to come up with a plan and it's a bad feeling, it's a negative vibe, how can we make it a little lighter? How can we feel it's a little bit more just in time? How can we shorten that gap between planning and execution? That's how you change it to a green flag. The reason I wanted to spend time to share this with you is that idea of that mature agile organization, more often than not, it's a myth. The reason why is that people come and they say, we got this licked. We have a lot of people with this certification. You got to zoom out and consider all of these different departments. You have to think about all of the different rooms in the castle. I think it's awesome that people are thinking about, we're trying to move the needle, we're trying to move forward, and maybe it's because of the values for the organization. Maybe it's a differentiator in the market, but every part of your organization needs to embrace, embody, and live these 4 values, these 12 principles. And it can feel bad if someone says, you're not being agile. But to be brutally honest with you, the reason why a lot of people want to explore this and get those advanced techniques, they think they have it licked, when really the appetite for the organization as a whole, you know what they're looking for? They're looking for traditional task and time management on a 2-week cycle. That's what places are looking for. And any place that's focused on that probably have a lot more red flags than green flags. I love helping places organize and think about, okay, how can we shift red flags to green flags? How can we even just see the red flags? If you think I can help you, please reach out. But this is something I wanted to put on the table to get you thinking. So I really appreciate you taking the time to stop by. And hopefully that organization that you're trying to become, that mature, agile organization, becomes less of a myth and more of a reality. Thanks for stopping by.